This is Inside D.C. on Brownfield, where we break down how the policy decisions made in Washington can impact your farming operation. From crop insurance to conservation and trade, ag policy matters. Now, here's your host, Carah Hart.
This is Inside D.C. I'm your host, Carah Hart, for Brownfield, and we're visiting with the USDA Undersecretary of Farm Production and Conservation, Richard Fordyce. Richard, thanks for being with us here today. And for those of you who may not know, but I think a lot of you probably do, Richard is a Missouri farmer, and this is not his first time serving at USDA under a Trump administration. This is round two for you. In the first administration, you served as FSA administrator. How does it feel to be back at USDA?
Well, honestly, Carah, first of all, it's good to see you. I'm excited about your new program. It feels good to be back. I've seen a lot of folks that I worked with in the first Trump administration on the career side, and it's good to reconnect and get reacquainted with those folks that do a great job supporting American agriculture.
Well, and it's so interesting. You got sworn in for your position at the end of September and then went right into a government shutdown. So how have the first few weeks on the job been?
So you're right. I started actually when I was my first day physically in the building was during a shutdown. And we were in the building every day trying to do the things that we could or were allowed to do during a shutdown. The one thing I would say is that you didn't bump into a lot of people in the hallway. So it was easy to navigate the building.
So I know there was part of the shutdown, FSA offices and some of the other USDA local offices were not shut down, they were shut down. And then USDA came through and said, hey, we're going to reopen some offices to get some things moving. How was the reopening of some of those local USDA offices? And, how are things processing now that everything's back up and the government's running now?
Yeah, so I think, and I don't know how many days, Carah, it was from the beginning of the shutdown when we were shut down. Mm-hmm. And then, not knowing how long the shutdown would last, one component of the Farm Service Agency is the farm loan side. And so we felt it was important to have some folks go into those offices, get the mail, make sure we're not missing something, some legal notice or something related to loans. And so those folks came in just long enough to get the mail, check the mail, and then do whatever might need to be done. And so then some days later, we really felt it was necessary and got the clearance to be able to bring two people into a local FSA office to start processing marketing assistance loans, start to get ARC and PLC payments out. It takes two people in the office to sign and certify to put those ARC and PLC payments out. And do some other things. We were pretty limited on the things that we were able to do, given the language of the shutdown and the lack of appropriations. But we were able to do some of those activities. And I know it was appreciated, especially those marketing assistance loans, certainly in parts of the country where most of those commodities are marketed initially through marketing assistance loans, cotton, peanuts, et cetera. And so we were able to get some of that work done, and I think folks did appreciate it. And then to your point, government, we get funded, right? Government opens back up. Literally the next day, we were open, full service, everybody was back. Lots to do yet, but the offices are open.
Sure. And you mentioned that ARC PLC payments have gone out. CRP payments, are those going out too?
CRP payments, I believe we had the first payment run either yesterday or will happen today.
And we're visiting here in mid-November, so right before Thanksgiving is when we're chatting.
Yes.
So some of that should be going out.
Yes.
Sounds like soon.
Yeah.
What other payments are farmers starting to get now that everything's reopened that they normally would get in October?
So, obviously the CRP one is the big one. Mm-hmm. We've got, and I don't know, 25 million acres now under CRP contract, under various kinds of CRP. And that's a critical program for FSA. And so I think the ability to get those payments out is really important, right? We did announce on Monday, so whatever date that was, the final piece of the
Supplemental Disaster Assistance Program?
Yes,
yeah.
Under the American Relief Act, which was passed, back a year ago, probably, or almost a year ago, December of 2024. And this is the final piece of that $30 billion that Congress appropriated out for economic relief, disaster recovery, and those kinds of things. So we did announce the last piece of that.
Help me understand that. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but I know there are probably some folks out there who are interested to know if they received a first round payment. This second round payment is not necessarily money that's going to the people that qualified in the first round, right?
Correct. Yeah, and I don't want to get in the weeds either. This is a little bit of a complicated program.
I'm sure.
And so SDRP2, primarily what that is intended is for crops that were not insured, or also to pick up shallow losses of crops that were insured. So shallow losses would be, I'm not going to do a very good job explaining this, but let's say that you didn't get an indemnity on your corn crop in 2023, but you were close. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to take another look at that. And so that's kind of that's defined as like a shallow loss. And so what we may be able to do, depending on every farmer is going to be different. We might be able to either maybe refund or pay you back your crop insurance premiums, fees, those kinds of things. It's going to vary, right? It's going to vary depending on who you are, where you are, and that sort of thing. So the crops that are probably going to be more subscribed in the second version as opposed to the first version would be specialty crops, folks that were not able to buy crop insurance. And so there's that. And then we also have a quality loss component that's going to go back to SDRP1, that if you had discounts related to quality, that if you bring that documentation in, we're going to be able to help offset some of those losses.
Well, and I know if you did qualify for the first round of payments, there was only a partial payment made, right? And so in order to get the rest of that payment, I guess we'll see how USDA is doing funding-wise at the end of the sign-up for Part 2. When does the sign-up end? So
the sign-up ends April 30th. Okay. And the reason that we've extended that date out that far is we anticipate some of the farmers that are going to come into the local FSA office maybe haven't worked with us before. They're a specialty crop grower that's never worked with FSA. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get that application up and going, get it approved. And so those payments are factored at 35%. Now that may be a little conservative, but we want to make sure that we are able to cover the need and cover however it's subscribed. And then once all the applications are in, we know what that outlay is, then we will look and see what's left of that, whatever those dollars are in the program. And then we will make sure all those dollars go out. So likely there'll be a top up. We have no idea what that would look like.
Thanks for clarifying some of that. I know I've seen some questions from farmers. They're definitely looking for that info.
Yes.
So that's great. I think it's also worthwhile to talk about what I think a lot of people were waiting on and maybe expecting to come from USDA earlier this week when we got the news about round 2 of the supplemental disaster relief. What's the status of trade relief right now for farmers and ranchers?
Yeah, so obviously those conversations are ongoing. That discussion, that conversation changes as situations change, right? With the announcement, the president was able to secure an agreement with China, 12 to 12.5 million metric tons in this marketing year, 25 million metric tons in the next 2 years. We saw an uptick in the market on soybeans, in some places, $1, $1.20, $1.30, markets are higher. So, certainly taking that into consideration, understanding how those trade agreements, and not only the agreement with China, but also some of those other trade agreements that have been made have really impacted kind of that market. So that conversation is still ongoing. And but no decision's been made yet on what that's going to look like. Okay,
so I know you were part of we talked earlier about your background and your experience at the USDA. The last administration, you were overseeing the Farm Service Agency, and you were overseeing the implementation of market relief to farmers and ranchers. Mm-hmm. Given that it sounds like there's still something being considered by the Trump administration, what's been your advice as something is being considered and being crafted that could possibly be going to farmers and ranchers? Maybe a lesson that you learned in the first round, or something that could make this a stronger option for farmers moving forward?
obviously China and the agreement with China, the volume and almost exclusively soybeans and certainly some sorghum as well. That kind of takes all the air out of the room, when we talk about those kinds of agreements. And so I know back in Trump 45, when we did the market facilitation program, there was a lot of focus almost exclusively on trade disruption with China. Mm-hmm. And so worked very closely with the chief economist's office. I mean, those folks over there, they have access to like everything. They have access to, trade volumes, orders, shipments, where it's going, weather-related things, right? Markets. So the chief economist's office is critical when we talk about anything, any kind of an ad hoc support program, to understand what is actually really happening. And so when we make a decision, and in this case, if we make a decision, that we are doing it in a way that's accurate and reflects what is actually happening across a bunch of commodities, a bunch of geographies, that we're taking that full view of what's happening across American agriculture.
Did you think we'd still be talking about ad hoc relief
No.
in this administration?
No. I didn't. I think, the president and the White House and the administration are laser focused on putting America first and getting trade deals, and not only for agriculture but for the rest of the segments of the economy of the country, right? But I had a friend of mine ask me or tell me the other day. They said, I don't know that I've ever heard a president coming back from a trade mission and actually verbalize soybeans and sorghum, like he actually said that. And so, I think the president, the administration, certainly Secretary Rollins, they're focused on how can we best position American agriculture and put them first, right? Like we want to be first. We want to have the opportunities to be successful. And that's a whole bunch of things. That's regulatory relief. That's tax policy, certainly trade, and those trade agreements are critically important. So just this holistic view of how do we put America first? How do we put America's farmers first? And I think the president's doing that. I think the secretary certainly does that every day, all day long.
Well, thanks for answering that. And I think that's certainly a big question I'm sure a lot of the folks tuning in have. We also wondered, too, you don't just oversee the Farm Service Agency in your role. You oversee crop insurance. You oversee conservation. One Big Beautiful Bill Act had a lot of agriculture viewed it as a positive for the industry. There's an improvement in reference prices for some of the farm programs. There's also some benefits for crop insurance, too. And maybe before we go into the crop insurance piece of it, we can also talk a little bit about what the boost in reference prices might look like and what farmers should expect in 2026.
Yeah, I think, obviously, Carah, you were following it. I was following it, the deliberations related to the new farm bill. And I don't even know what we would call it now. Would it be the 25 farm bill? Maybe I shouldn't laugh about that. No, but so
whatever you call it, it's Farm Bill 1.0, right?
Right. So we had the 2018 Farm Bill, and then we'll have a Farm Bill. They will pass a Farm Bill, but I think a lot of the big ticket, really higher level conversation topics were addressed in the One Big Beautiful Bill, right? So you mentioned reference prices. We also have the opportunity to add an additional 30 million base acres. On the crop insurance side, we got a determination in the One Big Beautiful Bill that the new and beginning farmer designation, where they have lower premiums on crop insurance and some other advantages. You exhausted that eligibility at 5 years. One Big Beautiful Bill takes that out to 10 years, which I think is huge for folks that are just starting their career in agriculture. And so there were a bunch of provisions in the One Big Beautiful Bill that really across the three agencies that are in the FPAC mission area, we've got a lot of work to do to get those fully implemented.
But they do go into effect in 2026,
2026, right? Yes.
Okay, Richard, this is the part of our segment that's really kind of fun. It's called Fast and Furious. This is rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
I am.
Favorite piece of farm equipment?
Tractor.
What do you wish farmers knew about the USDA that maybe they don't?
That the folks, certainly the political leadership within USDA, are certainly passionate about agriculture. But you've got, I don't know, in our mission area, there might be 30 to 40,000 people that work across those three agencies. They are all passionate about agriculture. They all want to support farmers. And they go to work every day wanting to make farmers and ranchers' lives better.
We are near the holidays, so here's some holiday ones. Holiday meal with a centerpiece. Ham, turkey, or beef?
Beef.
Best holiday tradition?
So after we do the Christmas Eve service at our church, we have every year gone to this covered bridge in our city park and take a family picture. And we have those from like when our kids were really small.
That's cool. Favorite USDA Farm Service Agency acronym?
Oh man. That is a good question.
Really testing your knowledge of those acronyms, right?
I know.
You guys like have to memorize
I have an acronym
that.
dictionary.
I heard that.
Yeah. Boy, there ought to be. So this is back in my first term, CFAP, because people said you couldn't figure out a way to put another P in there, so you call it a CPAP. So CFAP.
That's funny. What else should farmers know about you and your term as you get ready to serve at USDA again? What else have I missed?
I don't know. I mean, I have spent my adult life advocating for agriculture in a lot of different stops. I've met people that, a bunch of people that are here actually at NAFB that influenced my leadership journey along the way, like hundreds of people. Hundreds of people that are passionate about agriculture, they're advocates for agriculture, and I want to be part of the team, right? And be an advocate for agriculture.
Richard, thanks for joining us, and thanks for tuning in. Again, I'm Carah Hart. Joining me is Richard Fordyce, the Undersecretary of Farm Production and Conservation at the USDA. This is Inside D.C. on Brownfield.